Hey everyone, welcome to the review of Lord of the Rings 5e. We're Grim and Perilous Studios, and we're gonna make noises at you about this game. It's yes, because we
You sure
can.
you want us to make noises this
Make
time?
noises. Beautiful. Truly beautiful. Absolutely. Anyway, you all should know who we are. I'm Chuck. Let's see, underneath me is Jeremy. Across from me is Adam, and under Adam is Dan. Yeah, Free League Publishing was kind enough to send us early access to the PDF, so we're gonna take a look and let you all think, or let you know what we think. That's it.
Yes. Thank you, Free League.
Thank you, Free League. Um, yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about the game. I want to put it out there that I have, in fact, played 5th edition, and I have ran a good amount of 5th edition. As far as One Ring, I own the book, and about an hour ago, I finally opened it. Uh, so, yeah. Jeremy, I know you've ran and played quite a bit of 5e.
Yeah, I've got a group that we religiously play on Sunday, and that's all they'll play. Like it's pulling teeth to get them to do something
Mm.
different.
And Dan has played in almost all of my 5e games, so he's got plenty of time at the table. Adam, what's your 5e experience?
I played it once.
Twice.
Oh, twice, yes, actually, when we played this. But
Strixhaven, wasn't it?
no, I've got very little experience
Okay.
with 5e.
Okay.
Quite a bit of experience with second edition and fourth edition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I guess let's start with some things that people are going to find. Well, we're going to start with the different stuff. Like, this is not 5e stuff. This is going to be stuff they're pulling from One Ring. So let's go ahead and let's hop up to structure of gameplay. Structure of the game. So, kind of what I read on One Ring and what I saw in this gameplay is broken up into two phases: a fellowship phase and an adventuring phase. Now, your adventuring phase is when the majority of everything happens. That includes combat, that includes like exploration, and there's two new subsystems kind of in that, known as Council, which is a structured gameplay kind of thing for dealing with NPCs, getting favors and tasks out of them, stuff like that. And the other thing is a journey, another, call it like a mini game, where you're covering the aspects of the journey. It kind of takes that long journey and shrinks it down into a handful of dice rolls to get you here to there that gives you an outline of what happened. Yeah, combat as far as One Ring goes works like Lord of the Rings 5e works like 5e combat. Nothing special there. Once Council Journey, their own special subsections that gives you rules, tables, everything you need to kind of tie that together and how you get your results. We'll come back to the journey later because we've got we've had a lot of discussion about it so far. But let's move on to the other new part, and that's fellowship. Let's hop down to on the PDF. There's our journey stuff. Well, we'll leave it there. So in-game fellowship, when you're going out, you're doing something like you're going to take a journey to go someplace. You're going to do what you need to do. And then you're going to do another journey to get wherever you're going in the end. Once you finally get to your destination or safe haven, you go into what's called the fellowship phase. And this is kind of a wrap up of the journey where you tie up loose ends, kind of expand your character on what's happened in that time. So in fellowship, this is one that I definitely had trouble wrapping my head around. So the first thing you do is you're going to set the duration, just like the Lord of the Ring books, where, all of a sudden they show up in Rivendell or Lothlorien or wherever they're going. It's, oh yeah, we spent a month there. We spent the winter there. And so with the duration, it's kind of like that. You predetermine how much time you're going to spend there. So you got step 2 is choose a destination, but by this point you would already be at your destination. So I'm not understanding why they put that as step 2, or maybe I'm missing something. After that, you do your spiritual recovery. And this spiritual recovery ties into a new rule that we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's where you can recover shadow. And shadow kind of works like corruption, where as you do bad things or as scary things happen to you, you'll take shadow. And through spiritual recovery, that's where you can kind of clean that out. When you're doing fellowship, you've got undertakings that you can take. Some of those undertakings, well, the ones that I've got listed from the book, the basic ones: gather rumors, meet your patron, look at maps, study your routes, strengthen your fellowship, teamwork and stuff. Study magical items. You can go through and identify any magical items that you have. Or you can write a song. And you can use those songs during the journey phase to kind of give yourself little boosts and stuff in the party. One thing with the fellowship is once every 3 fellowships, it's Yule, winter celebration. It's the start of a new year. And there's special undertakings that you get during Yule. First one is, once again, it'll tie into shadows here in a little bit, but you can heal what's called shadow scars, and we'll get into that. You can raise an heir. Like, essentially think of it as you are investing money into your replacement character. That way, when your character dies or retires, you can kind of convert that money into experience, kind of like bonus items for your new character. You can recount your story, which means you can kind of swap out some things on your character build, let you refine it a little bit. The kind of catch with Yule is that your character gets a year older, and if you healed shadow scars, you don't get any bonus XP for the year. If you didn't heal any shadow scars, then you do get bonus XP. All right, so that's kind of on the fellowship phase. Let's get into some real new rule stuff. First is going to be what I'm referring to as the fellowship pool. We've all got a metric boatload of experience in this little game called Zweihander. And I like to reference fellowship pool as very similar to your fortune points. You have a fellowship pool based on the number of players, and you can get extra points of fellowship in that pool depending on your patron and some other things. The thing that you do with fellowship is, your patrons will let you spend fellowship for some things, or just flat out you can spend 1 point of it for advantage on a roll. So it's not a reroll, but if you know you're going to do something important, advantage is cool enough. At the end of the fellowship phase, your fellowship pool is refreshed. And the 2 kind of catches here is that to use a point of fellowship, the entire party has to agree on it, which sounds fine. Sometimes in play that won't happen. And the other thing is it's one communal pool of fellowship, right? But everyone tracks the fellowship pool on their own character sheet.
Seems like an opportunity for communication problems.
It does. And, it'd be a great opportunity just to throw some fancy looking coins out in the middle of the table and use that to represent your fellowship pool.
Yeah, some sort of token or something that everyone can see.
Yeah.
Either that or, have one person keep track of it.
That's probably what it would come
Yeah.
to if we were doing it on paper. One person would keep track of it. Because, I
As a
mean,
designated fellowship tracker.
yeah, who's going to be erasing? And, I mean, no one wants to erase and rewrite on their character sheet that much. So, any questions about the fellowship pool or the phases?
No.
No?
No, I mean, it's basically like you get some social skill challenges. I think the pick a destination thing is because there's a lot of potential for rolling for your exploration skills, your travel skills, so that your journey afterwards might suck
Okay.
a little less. That's
Okay,
my
so you're
guess on
saying
that.
you're picking not your current destination, your next destination. That way, if like you want to do the undertaking where you study maps and stuff, maybe it's tied to that. Okay,
I
that
think
makes
that's what
sense.
that's about.
Yeah,
Yeah, I also thought maybe the destination was like, like a subset of the location.
it could be, because your destination could be Bree, or you could be ending up in Bree, but your destination is the Prancing Pony. You're journeying towards the Shire, but your destination where you're going to spend this time is Hobbiton or something like that. Okay, yeah.
So what I gathered from this was like the fellowship phase was more of a way to introduce some downtime role playing.
Exactly that it is. Yeah.
That way people could get the opportunity to know the other characters' backstories a little bit.
Yeah.
Showcase that.
Yeah.
Just having it established for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
go ahead. I'm sorry.
was going to say one thing I like is that they present that there's a somewhat limited amount of stuff you can do. Like normally you'll get one thing that the whole group does. Sometimes individuals get to choose something, but several people, depending upon what your background is, you might get a free little thing that you slide in there.
Yeah.
I kind of dug that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the difference between your regular fellowship and the Yule one. Because the Yule, that's like break off and do your own things, whereas your regular fellowships, it's kind of a group thing. Yeah.
I do kind of like the concept of like raise an arrow and recount a story. Or
It's kind of a neat way to do it. Like you can only do it like once a year, right? But
Right.
I mean, essentially, is that you're investing in your next character, right?
Yeah.
That would be fun,
like-
especially if you're planning a very long-term campaign.
right.
Agreed. I would love that. I would also love the role play of like the reason you get to change out something on your character sheet is because you tell a story. And of course, I'm just a dirty bastard. So I think that's because you lie about yourself and like, actually,
it's the
this
original
is what I
version of
did.
the Red Book, right?
And if I was the one running the game, I would ask the player to like, okay, no, tell me what version of the story you're telling to justify why you've swapped.
Yeah.
Because that'd be fun.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you go from playing Esmeralda and then you start as Pippin, you can say that you took advantage of your last play.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. All right. Let's move on to the next chunk of new stuff. And it's patrons. But real quick, if, since we're talking about patrons, if you want to help the studio out, why don't you swing on over to our Patreon? Check out what we got. We got some cool stuff. Give us a follow if you want. It'd be really nice. Super nice. But anyway, yeah, patrons are people that you're undertaking these quests for. They got stuff for you to do. They got advice for what you're doing. The book comes with 6 patrons, and at the start of the campaign, you pick a patron. The included ones are, let me get down to that. Where did it go?
It should have been the page immediately after, I thought.
Oh, yep, you're right. Yeah. It comes with patrons. Balin, Bilbo, Círdan, I'm not saying that right. Gandalf.
I don't know.
Gilrain, Goldberry, and Bombadil. I mean, who doesn't want Tom Bombadil as your patron? And each one of them kind of has favored callings. Like, if you're from a certain calling, they might like you a little more. They each give you possibly some bonuses to your party's fellowship pool. And they get some advantages that you can use those fellowship with. So like Ballin, you can spend a fellowship to get an extra D20 on an attack roll. Bilbo just gives you an extra point of fellowship in addition. But yeah, they all also have kind of their own agenda, what they want you to do. So like in the PDF, Balin is reclaiming lost strongholds or eliminating enemy leaders. Bilbo's retrieving lost lore. Goldberry and Bombadil protect the land and find and preserve what was buried. You know, it's kind of neat. Yeah, so yeah, you start with one, and as you're going through the journey phase, there's a chance for encounters where you can possibly meet new patrons, in addition to like any NPCs you might come across on the road. And it's kind of explained that throughout your campaign, there should be a very good chance that you'll meet all of the patrons and have a chance to kind of strike up deals and, you know, kind of enter their service as a way to get those bonuses. I was going to say boons and bonuses, but it came out bonuses.
That's shape nice. Your adventure as well, probably a little bit by everything they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions there?
No, I just thought it was really cool to have like an NPC that gives you, you know, extra mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Helps give you game direction, which is always appreciated while running, but also the party by helping them out. Yeah, exactly. You get
benefits,
an immediate tangible benefit in your fellowship point, you know, as long as you're not picking Gilrain, daughter of Gilray, because you don't get any. But it also gives you things you can do with your fellowship pool. So like Gandalf, if you pick Gandalf, you get an extra D20. You can spend a fellowship, get an extra D20 that you can use on saves. So it's very nice. Let's hop down to new skills, because the game has new skills in addition to the 5e skills. These are all kind of fun. I'm digging these. So first up on the list is Explore. It's a wisdom-based skill. It's exploring. You know, making your way through unfamiliar areas. Pretty straightforward. Hunting, both hunting and exploring, it's just kind of like the expansion of survival, I feel. Both of those things I would have rolled under survival, but now hunting is its own. You know, getting food, water, but also you can use it for hunting more dangerous game, like, you know, the party tracking orcs across the fields of Rohan, that kind of thing. Old lore of the Elder Days, deeds, places, genealogies, you know, all that weird lore people pull out of their butts. Yeah, essentially, just if you pass an old lore test, you just get your copy of the Silmarillion off your shelf and look up what riddle, which is used for the game of riddles, because, you know, speak, friend, and enter, or what has it got in its pocket? You know, roll high on your riddle. You'll figure that out.
All in mail, never slinking?
Yes. What's the answer, Adam?
Always thirsty, never drinking?
It's a potato.
It's a fish.
Okay. Because it's got scales.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I forgot that one was even there.
If you've got a friendly DM, that's going to be a really fun skill to have.
It could be. It could also be, I feel like, a wildly painful one in some regards.
I am not good at riddles, so I appreciate that they put in a riddle skill. Like, don't ask Chuck to solve a riddle, because I'm not going to do it. At least with the riddle skill, I can put points in it and I can just roll it, and
there's a chance you might luck your way into being smart.
Yeah. And then the final new skill on there is travel. and estimating journey length, reading maps. One thing that they pointed out is the ability you can use it to, if you encounter others on the road, you can use travel to try and get a feel before you approach them if they're going to be a friendly group or hostile towards you. So that's kind of a fun thing with that.
I kind of dig adding the extra skills.
I do too. I mean, it doesn't hurt, and I think they really fit the setting, which I like.
I'm a big fan of doing skill challenges, and it's always a shame when if you get a party that like everybody picks up their 2 or 3 key skills, and there's so much overlap in the party. It's really nice to expand a little bit, so you give people more chance to shine in something.
Yeah. And when you get into like some of the rules of journeys, because you pick roles, who's doing what during the journey, and those skills come into play directly in that as well. So
you might want to make sure you don't all double down on the same thing then when you set up your party.
Yeah.
Well,
I think with the way the journeying stuff works, this is definitely a system that a session 0 sort of situation would help a lot.
Yeah. Get you that well-rounded party. All right, moving on to the next page. We got ourselves magical successes. So when you get magical items, you get certain virtues, things like that. You can have what's counted as magical successes. It automatically counts as a 20. You are going to succeed no matter how hard it is. But it's also very obvious when you get one. Frodo had to get out of the, main room of the prancing pony and the ring fell on his finger. Oh shit, he did it. Magical success. Ain't no stopping him, but everyone knew something was funky. So yeah, it's kind of neat.
Yeah. Your blades that glow that automatically let you know things are coming close.
Yeah. And it gives a good list of examples. And I think, some people could, trying to wrap their heads around how to use magical successes. That list is pretty nice. I like the deception. Yeah. You tell a lie that's too impossible to believe, but people believe it anyway. It's nice.
Gandalf's sword should have glown in the movies.
It should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't want to take away how cool, that, and it wasn't in, I don't remember. What else? They've also, they got 2 rules here. Encumbrance, we're not going to touch on. They got different rules for encumbrance, but nobody uses encumbrance, so don't worry about it.
But if you're a DM that really wants to punish your players, you're going to love this.
Yeah. And then the other thing we absolutely have to talk about is resting. Resting is far more difficult. And mainly because short rests take 8 hours. Long rests can only happen in safe places like towns. They like maybe if you find some place that's abandoned but well defended. Yeah, okay. You could take a rest there.
They might have been better off just doing rested or well rested.
Well, because the other thing is, long rests can only happen in towns or safe refuges, or like I said, if you find someplace that's deserted but well sheltered, you could long rest there. Short rest, they're 8 hours. So what that means is all your abilities that require a short rest to refresh, that's now a daily ability.
It's now the equivalent of a long rest, even on a short rest. It's rough.
Yeah, and things that require a long rest to finish, you are doing that once a journey. That's rough. That's real rough. Especially because we're going to talk a lot more later on about exhaustion. And for a refresher, you can take a long rest and it reduces your exhaustion by 1 level. So you're not going to get to reduce your exhaustion on a journey. It's kind of tough. They also, you can see the sidebar there on the screen. They have rules so you can actually use the One Ring D6s in place of D20s on there if you want to. It breaks down to as In place of a d20, you roll 3d6. You add them together, that's your score. If you have disadvantage on a roll, you roll those 3d6. Any dice that read 1, 2, or 3 count as zeros. So only 4, 5, and 6s count. If you have advantage, you throw an extra d6 in there. So you're rolling 4, then adding it all together. If you roll 2 or more 6s, it counts as a crit. If you have disadvantage on the roll, you have to roll 3 6s to get a crit. But if all of your dice read 1, 2, or 3, it is a critical failure. So that seems a little rough. I don't know. I'd have to see it in play to know how I would actually feel about it.
That kind of feels like they're sort of like teasing the audience, and we might get into this later, but it feels like that's sort of like you've got the Free League tempting these 5e players to come over to the D6 system.
Yeah, that is definitely something we're going to talk about later. Any questions or comments about resting?
Yeah, so it never really, well, from what I saw in that one bullet point, I don't think there was a amount of time for a long rest.
Long
so
rest.
You could say long rest could be a couple days.
It could be.
Yeah.
So it does say in the second bullet point is once you've reached your destination, or you've decided to stop along the way somewhere, short rest revert to 1 hour, right? But yeah, they don't dictate how long a long rest is, but going by that, it would follow the rules of regular 5e. So I would say if you're in a safe haven, your town, somewhere like that, I would count a long rest as your regular, 6 or 8 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I remember right, don't the books like describe the characters taking several years to get to one part of what is, what we think of in the movies is like, maybe a month or so.
Yeah, no, the journey was a good year or two, right? Like from there to Mordor. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Lord of the Rings took place over a number of years.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing with this game that I really noticed is that time is that it's structured. Regular 5e, like, you can go from level 0 to 20 or, level 1 to 20 in game time. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month. This very much has, what's that, Dan?
That's kind of arbitrary.
It is arbitrary. This is very much, because the thing is once once every 3 fellowships, that is a year. So you got to look at your journeys. If, breaking that down, what is that, like 4 months per journey or something like that, if it's broken down pretty evenly. And that's if you don't linger in the fellowship for, we've got a lot of fatigue. We've got a lot of shadow built up. Let's hang out here for a month and then continue our journey. So it really kind of stretches it out. And it also makes another thing kind of important in it determines your characters have ages, and your character, like, this is when they're going to start adventuring, or like the minimum age to start adventuring. You don't have to start there, but it gives a retirement age for some. Elves don't really count. So yeah, you're going to be counting years, and if you play long enough, those years are going to stack up on your character, and you're going to have to retire your character just because age is going to catch up with them. But yeah.
Just get bored.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that. But yeah, long rest only, and say that's going to be tough, especially when we look down at callings and yeah.
When you have abilities that only refresh on a short or long rest.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that refresh on the long rest. It's pretty tough.
That is very tough.
It seems like it kind of eliminates spellcasting for the most part.
Spellcasting's not in this game, Dan.
Yeah. You don't get to play Gandalf.
You don't get to play Gandalf.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
No, there is no Maiar PC class.
No. So they also got virtues in this game where there's your cultural virtues, there's general virtues. But they're just feats, right? If you go
Yeah.
read them, they're
Just-
feats. They're different, sure, absolutely, but they play out just like 5e feats do.
Mhm.
So we're not going to touch on that. Instead, we're going to talk about shadow and corruption. So once again, we've all got a lot of experience with this little game called Zweihander. And in Zweihander, as you do bad things and as your character experiences terrible things, you build up corruption. You get enough corruption, eventually you're going to, start picking up disorder, and then you're going to get all sorts of bad stuff. This kind of sort of does that, right? As you face the shadow, the enemy, as you experience terrible things, you're going to get a chance to take a save to avoid taking shadow. Your shadow limit, think of it as your wisdom score.
Mhm.
That's what you're measuring up against. As you do bad things, as like I rob this dude, I steal this person's shoes, I murder, whatever person for whatever arbitrary reason, you're going to take shadow. And as you take shadow, when you get to the half or more of your wisdom score, so let's say your wisdom's setting at 5, once you hit 5 or more, your character takes a new condition called miserable. While you're miserable, one fellowship gets deducted from the fellowship pool. And D20s pick up this fancy new trait where if you roll a 1 or a 2, it is an automatic failure. Doesn't matter what your bonuses are, doesn't matter how low your DC is. If you roll a 1 or a 2, it's a failure. Now, if you get to your max wisdom score, so you pick up 10 shadow, your wisdom was 10, you pick up a new condition called anguished. In anguished, you get everything that miserable. You lose the fellowship point from the pool, and 1s and 2s are fails. You also get disadvantage on all D20 rolls,
Oh,
which
you might as well just call it quits.
it's
at that
brutal.
point.
It is very brutal. Now, there is a mechanic to clear that out, and that is by taking a shadow scar. So we mentioned shadow scar. It's a special Yule event. You can heal a shadow scar. What a shadow scar is a permanent point of shadow. So once you start stacking up enough shadow, you can decide, you know what? I want to recover this. I don't want this shadow because I don't want these negative effects on me. You clear out your shadow, but you get 1 point of permanent shadow that won't go away until the end of the year if you choose to clear it out. Because with the Yule thing at the end of the year for the fellowship part, if you heal shadow scars, you do not get the end of year bonus XP. And that end of year bonus XP, it's not a huge amount, but it's enough to think about because it's 10 times your intelligence score times your level. So
That could certainly stack up.
it could. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in theory, this is kind of meant to be like a slightly lower level game, so that bonus XP might mean more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the other thing, once you become anguished, once you hit your max, and if you didn't take a shadow scar to clear out your shadow, you're anguished. And the only way to get rid of anguished is to suffer a bout of madness. It is a random table in the book, and it can sometimes have very violent and negative impacts for the party. So yeah, it's something you want to juggle, something you want to pay attention to, especially if you're actively going against the forces of the enemy. And it ties back up to another thing with the fellowship phase where you can spiritually heal yourself. The amount that you get to spiritually heal is 1, 2, or 3 points during a fellowship. And it is based on your actions during the journey. If you did something that will just annoy the enemy, it's 1. If you did something to actively kind of hinder their plans, it's 2. If you actively, openly opposed and dealt a blow, like a serious blow to the enemy, then it's 3 points that you get to heal of shadow. So it's not easy to get rid of either. Yeah. So yeah, that's shadow. It's very, very rough. Once again, so you might end up taking a lot of shadow if you're actively being just a terrible person. If not, you're only really going to be taking shadow if you're being exposed to terrible things, monsters of the enemy, things like that. Then you got to worry about that shadow, but at least you can save against it. Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough.
Like this might be one of those things where it depends on how the GM runs the game, how quickly that will or won't stack
Yeah.
up.
Yes, this is. I would definitely agree. This feels like a system that if you've got a DM that wants to be a punishing DM, you're going to feel the hurt.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I think it's fair to argue that most of Tolkien's writing calls for heroes to be heroes.
Yeah.
Not everybody digs that kind of game, but I think it's fair that the system reinforces that.
Yeah. And so another thing, each calling has I think it's called a shadow path. Once you get far enough down that corruption, that shadow path, your character becomes unplayable, and it kind of gives you, each shadow path gives you kind of that prompt to how to lean in to your shadow path from a role-playing point.
Yeah, I like that. Like a lot of those, they give a hint, like, for example, your captain might become arrogant. And then because you have that trait, then at that point, the DM might argue, like, well, if you're arrogant and you're trying to make a persuasion check, I think I'm going to give you disadvantage because you're kind of being a jerk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that really covers the new rules. Anyone want to touch on anything else before we move on to the adventuring party themselves? So yeah, we got adventures to talk about. So kind of, you've got your heroic cultures. In this game, that includes the Men of Dale, the Dwarves of Durin, Elves of Linden, Hobbits of the Shire, Men of Bree, and Rangers of the North. The next thing that you've got are your callings. So think of it as like in, 5e, it's your race and your class. So cultures. Yeah, so I guess we'll just start talking about it. The big thing is cultures, they give you bases to things. They give you, your starting attributes. And they've also, each culture has some backgrounds, which gives you a couple skills, a tool, and a kind of distinctive feature. It's kind of like a personality trait, something that stands out about you. It also determines your standard of living, which affects your starting gear. So, like the Men of Dale and the Dwarves of Durin start out as prosperous. So they get more starting gear because there's wealthier kind of backgrounds. Let's move into bardings, the Men of Dale. So first off, they get +1 to strength and charisma, proficiency with the great bow, because we all know when the bard shot Smog down, which absolutely. Like kind of the 5e variant human rules, you start off with an additional cultural virtue. So you get that extra feat at the start of it. You get proficiency with persuasion and that prosperous standard of living. They do speak about languages. As a GM myself who doesn't really like messing around with languages, it's nice that they do talk about it, and they kind of give you ways to deal with that. Because nothing's worse than trying to parlay with a group of, some travelers or something, and just no one happens to line up with languages. Each, like I said, each culture has their own backgrounds. I'm not going to go to each one, each one gives a couple skills, a tool proficiency, and a feature. So like just looking right off dragon stories, you get eager and proud. So yeah. Let's see. Let's go talk about Durin's folk, the dwarves. Let's just hop on the image of them right there because it's nice looking. Dwarves now some cultures have subcultures, and it kind of flavors things. Dwarves do have subcultures off the bat. All the dwarves get +2 to con. Base speed is 25. Proficiency with battle axe, great axe, and the matic. Another really cool thing dwarves get is they get +1 HP for each level, just right off the bat. it's very nice, especially at low level, and especially a game like this where recovering that health is harder to do. Another cool thing is with dwarves, armor does not impose a disadvantage on fatigue saving throws, which is important in this game because we will talk about fatigue and exhaustion later. They also get their choice of a proficiency with an artisan tool, prosperous living, and yeah, the 4 subcultures for dwarves: dwarves of Erebor, of the Blue Mountains, of the Iron Hills, and the Wandering Dwarves. And on top of that, they do have their backgrounds as well, so you can pick your background and your subculture, and it really gives you a lot of ways to kind of customize. So, like looking at this page here, it kind of gives you the subcultures, so you can see that the Dwarves of Erebor, it also increases your charisma by 1. You gain proficiency with an artisan tool of your choice out of jewelers, masons, smiths. If you're already proficient with it, you can actually double up your proficiency bonus, which is very nice. And you get extra languages and stuff. So yeah, each subculture kind of gets their own additional things, which is nice. Yeah. Let's hop down to the elves. Elvie boys. +2 to wisdom right off the bat. Like 5e, they don't sleep. They just go into their trance 4 hours a night. They've got some built-in magical successes, which is very cool. Elven skill right here. By virtue of birthright, elves are capable of reaching levels of finesse unattainable by mortals. If you are not miserable and you make an ability check that lets you add your proficiency bonus, you can obtain a magical success, and you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you get to regain all expended uses on a long rest. Now, like we said, long rests are very long ways in between, but starting at level 1, you get 2 magical successes, as long as it's a skill you're proficient in.
Be pretty powerful pretty quickly.
I mean, it's that clutch.
It's nice to have that auto, like, please don't let me roll the 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see Dan playing an elf all the time.
100%.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I've got a chance with.
Absolutely. And so they come with, well, let's go back over to this here. This is where my notes are. Proficiency with perception. It falls under eyes, keen eyes of the elves. I'm calling it dark vision, but night vision, whatever you want to call it. You don't have disadvantage on wisdom checks that rely on sight. The only real disappointment that I've got in the elves is the fact that they only have 1 subculture included, and that's the Elves of Linden. They should have thrown what's that?
It seems like a bit of a miss since, they talk about all the different elves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that,
maybe these are the only ones willing to adventure anymore. Because I remember a big thing of the Lord of the Rings, particularly, was that the elves were kind of done with this world.
Yeah, that's true.
Earlier, they were more adventurous, but yeah.
No, and I mean, story-wise, yeah, that makes sense. I would have loved to see some more variety on elves.
Sure.
But, you know, if it makes sense for the story, that in a book like this, that makes sense. Yeah, elves, they get standard of living frugal. Who the hell needs money? And yeah, you get some additional stuff. And then they've got their backgrounds, Call of the Sea, stuff like that. But let's not linger. Let's get to what everyone really wants. Hobbits of the Shire.
Yeah.
Look at them. They're adorable. Let's hop back up a couple pages. So what hobbits get right off the bat, +2 to dex. They're small, and they got 25 movement speed, proficiency with stealth, advantage versus shadow. So if you're getting exposed to shadow stuff, you have advantage on it, which is important. And proficiency with pipes, because pipe tobacco is very important. And in fact can be used in some council scenes and some fellowship scenes to make things go better. So, because everyone can appreciate the art of a good pipe smoke. Yeah, and I'm very happy to see they've got the 3 halfling subcultures: Fallowhide, Harfoot, and Store. Let's hop down here. So yeah, And they kind of give a breakdown. Follow hide, you get your charisma by 1, Harfoot wisdom, store constitution, and you get some tool proficiencies with those. I would have really liked to have seen, because you get proficiency with stealth, right? But everyone knows hobbits can do 2 very cool things. And if a hobbit doesn't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. And I would have loved to see something more mechanical, like what they've got with the elves. And then also everyone knows that if a hobbit decides to throw a stone at you, it's going to hurt. I don't remember the dude
Kind
that
of like
Sam
a magic
threw an
successful.
apple at. Yeah, but yeah, like Adam would have be able to play an amazing hobbit just throwing rocks at people.
Yeah.
But still, they got some good backgrounds. Bucklander, Patrol, Restless Farmer. Each get some skills, some tools, some distinctive features. Yeah. Some extra backgrounds. Tookish blood. I like that. Then we kick down to Bree, the shorter, stockier humans compared to the Bardings. They get a +1 to charisma and wisdom. They are also proficient with pipes, proficiency with insight. Just like the Men of the Dale, they get an additional cultural virtue, and they get some backgrounds. So I don't know if that extra cultural virtue is enough to offset what some of the other cultures get, especially when we get down to the Rangers.
Rangers are crazy.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of supposed to be that in the lore too, though.
They are,
Mm-hmm.
but it's one of those. I don't know if I would have made that call if I was making that game, because then it becomes,
Everybody's gonna be rangers.
yeah, lore versus mechanics. Like as a player, I will play a character first before I play into the mechanics of it, right? Just I want to play a character, but for those players out there that like to min max and tinker, why would you never pick a ranger? Because yeah, let's get down to rangers.
And just imagine Joe making the most broken ranger that's ever existed.
Joe would. So the
Play
big
a halfling ranger if you can. No, you can't. I know.
well, yeah, no, but yeah. So
Joe would
rangers,
make the argument.
yeah,
He would find a way to make it happen.
he
Yeah.
would. So
They
here's
allow
the,
you to play a halfling of Bree. They give you rules for that. Why can't there be a
Right?
halfling ranger?
right.
Sorry.
So the first thing you're going to see off the Rangers is you get +1 to strength, constitution, wisdom, and another ability score of your choice.
That's
For
pretty big right there.
it's very large right there. Let's see the other things that are really going to catch you off. They are a little faster, which is fine. You get proficiency with 2 skills of your choice between explore, hunting, old lore, perception, stealth, or travel. But you're also broke. You've got frugal. So you got a lot. They
I feel like that can be overcome with a balanced party or something.
yeah, but yeah, and then same thing. Ranger backgrounds. Yeah. Then next up, we're gonna get into callings. Anyone got anything else they want to throw in about the cultures before we get into callings? No? Callings is where it's at. Yeah.
I like that there are some virtues or feats that are tied to your culture. So
Yeah.
I think that's sometimes fun, but that's mostly a flavor thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, one thing you'll notice looking at all the callings on this table, you got a D8 or a D10 hit die. Yeah, which is fine. Starting hit points for these are going to be,
One quick thing on cultures, though.
Yeah.
I wish we could have seen Rohan or Minas Tirith.
I was thinking of
I
that,
agree.
like Men of Gondor, Riders of
then-
Rohan. Yeah.
This could be a lack of knowledge of mine, but the Misty Mountains, were there no dwarves in there?
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember because that was I think a matter of when.
That's where Moria was, and they wouldn't be there anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's a matter of when though, because this takes place after Bilbo's returned from Smog.
But
Yeah.
before the events of the Fellowship?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's
right in
kind of-
there where they could have.
Right, because it
stopped.
was after the Hobbit that I forget which dwarves went out to reclaim Moria.
Balin.
Yeah, and they failed tragically.
Yeah, that's right.
But is Balin one of the patrons?
Yes. So it could be. I mean, yeah, I
it
don't
would have
know,
been
man.
before he tried to reclaim it, I guess.
Yeah, this is some lore stuff that I'm, out of my league on.
I think you start getting into a weird thing where like there's a weird combination between background and calling where you start bringing in things like Rohan, because I feel like some of your callings are where you would get something that helps peg you as Gondor or Rohan or something like that. But
let's look at the bardings. Let's scroll down to, here's our backgrounds. Dragon Stories, Hammer and Anvil, Healing Hands, Patient Hunter, Gifted Senses, Word Weaver.
Oh, I guess that's how you could play someone from anywhere, really.
I mean, yeah, you could tweak it and just flavor it something else. But I mean,
I would have liked to have been able to say I'm a writer of Rohan.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I want that to be my culture.
Yeah.
I want to be somebody who stands at the wall of Gondor. I want that to be my culture.
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't?
Absolutely. So, yeah. Now, and this is something I'm confused on and I haven't found an answer to. So looking at this, you can see primary ability, and usually primary ability, like these are the abilities that you should focus on to get your highest stats in. So captain, strength and charisma makes sense. You got to be strong to fight and you got to be charismatic to lead. Champion, strength or dexterity. Now it would make me think, are you a melee fighter or are you a ranged fighter? I don't know. I guess it makes sense if you're looking at it clearly in that, but it was enough when I read it. I'm like, why is there a difference between an and an or between those?
Probably for multi-classing purposes.
So
usually to multi-class, you have to have a minimum and a primary attribute.
And there are rules for multi-classing in this as well. So what do you got, Adam?
So it's been a long time since I've really worried about it, but in D&D, are all melee weapons strength?
No.
So you could have some dex-based melee weapons.
They would be finesse weapons. Yeah, you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also ranged weapons.
So if you're more of a finesse type of fighter, like Legolas, you know, he got in the melee sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, also lines out your saving throw proficiency, armor and weapons. Just a brief description, but we'll get a little more into these. Yeah, let's talk about the captain. So all of these levels are laid out to level 10. They have rules down below for if you want to play beyond level 10, and they do have multi-classing rules. So if you want more than one calling, they've got your requirements and what you get from the additional callings. But mainly the notes that I have, what I want to talk about is just what you're going to look at first level, because, you know, first impressions make a big difference. So with the captain, right off the bat, hit die is a D10. Everyone's starting hit points are their max hit die and their con modifier. And then after that, you're rolling or taking a 6 plus your con modifier. Proficiencies, what's that?
I was gonna say, at least you won't start with any, you know, ready to die characters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Captain's proficiency in everything. All armors, all shields, simple and martial weapons. No proficiency in tools. But from their skill list, they get to pick 2 out of animal handling, athletics, insight, intimidate, persuade, or travel. Moving down to the second page of captain, lure of power. So yeah, that's exactly it. You start getting that shadow built up, and yeah, you're out there scrambling. How can you increase your station? How can you get more power? But yeah, the ability, whatever you want to call it, that captains get at first level is called leadership. Seems really cool off the bat until you remember that short rests take 8 hours. As a captain, it's temp HP. You can give a temp HP equal to a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus times 2. And you can only do that once every short or long rest.
It's the same as the feat, but worse? Because there's one more thing.
Yeah?
Isn't it an action in combat? An action, not a bonus action, but an action to do this.
Let's see here. As an action in combat, yes. So, yeah.
So you can't have this up before you go to do things.
No, you got to do it during.
That seems. I mean, they're probably trying to abuse people from just being like, all right, we finished our rest. Let's all get our temp HP.
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, let's talk about this later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's worth. So, and then the other
that comes into not just the resting, but action economy.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. So the other thing, like captain titles, these are actually like, think of them like sub callings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chieftain, challenger, or I'm sorry, it's chieftain or thane, and each one of those have like at third level and seventh level, you get an ability from that too. And each calling kind of has something along those lines.
Play a tireless leader.
Yeah. All right. Our champion, our fighty fight.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Same D10 hit die. You need to put your stuff in strength or dex. Saves are strength or charisma. You're once again proficient in all weapons, shields, armor. The skills, you get to pick 2: acrobat, animal handling, athletics, hunting, intimidate, perception. Your shadow calling or your shadow path is the curse of vengeance. Yeah, you don't let shit slide. And you tend to start reacting more and more violently. Now you do, and this is probably why it's got that or, because at first level, you get a fighting style, which choices archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, protection, 2-weapon fighting. If you're familiar with 5th edition, you're familiar with these. The other thing that you're going to get at first level is Surge of Vigor, which is it's far more useful than the captains because it's once per short rest. You can use a bonus action to either attack, dash, disengage, or dodge, or you can heal yourself for a D8 plus your champion level plus your constitution modifier.
That's crazy. That's like a combination of the fighter's second wind in 5th edition, plus the rogues, like additional actions they can do for bonus action.
Cunning action, yeah.
It's so much better.
It's got a more utility to it, I think.
It does. So the only thing that gives the captain is the fact that it is at first level you can heal 4, or you can give temporary hit points to 4 people, but it's an action. This here, they did it right. It's a bonus action, and you can use it as an extra thing in combat, or you can use it to heal yourself.
Yeah, this one's basically free.
Yeah.
So,
and once again, short rest or long rest to refresh it. So you're looking at once a day. Let's see. Then you've got your, what do they call them for champions? Your champion way. You can be a sharpshooter or you can be a slayer. But we'll get into messenger, which is, not quite bard. D8 for your hit die. You're going to be focusing on dex and charisma because that's where your primaries and your saves are. You get light armor proficiency, simple weapon, short swords, and you have a very large list of skills that you get to pick 4 from. I don't want to list them out because it's a lot. It does include riddle, which is nice.
Yeah. I feel like this is the class that if you want to get past the whole language thing, because in theory, in some settings, an interpreter would be crazy important.
Yeah.
If somebody in the party is willing to be a messenger, that's just where the DM can just hand wave it.
So, yeah. And so the Shadow Path, Wandering Madness. Yeah, you just, no place is home. You don't belong anywhere. One cool thing is they have folklore, which is so it's what is it? Like it's an intelligence based test related to traditional customs, beliefs, stories from the various communities, in the area. You get to double your proficiency bonus on that, which is nice. But the other thing you get is tireless and swift. Right off the bat, gives you +5 movement. The other thing is you get a bonus to fatigue from your journey, equal to the messenger level. And messengers they get unarmored defense, and unarmored defense kind of recurs here and there. I do like that for each calling that gets unarmored defense, it's for that calling. So for the messenger, it's your AC is 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your charisma modifier. So yeah. Shit.
So
Scholars,
this
yeah.
would be somebody you'd want in your party because like they help you deal with fatigue,
So
right?
they aren't as fatigued. They don't help the party with fatigue.
Oh, okay.
No.
But the big thing is they are just better at handling the intricacies with dealing with different cultures.
And just kind of reading through it, their sneak attack looks like it could be pretty powerful too.
Once you get high enough level. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you'd want to. This is a class that's kind of competent in a lot of different areas because you get to choose a lot of different skills.
Yeah.
And if you're not wearing any armor, not wearing a shield, and you've got your high stats, you may not get hit very often either.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good combo. Like I'm unarmed, I'm unarmored, and I have high charisma, which actually means I'm harder to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking at Scholar next kind of fits a lot of the same things. Well, you're going to get that D8 hit die. Your primary and your saves relying in intelligence and wisdom. You only get light armor, simple weapons. You don't get as many skills. You got 3 skills to choose from, but there's a good amount of skills. Your shadow calling is lure of secrets. You're always looking for those dark secrets, those things people have forgotten. So scholars get 3 kind of starting abilities. First, we're going to start with the last one. They get unarmored defense, which is 10 plus dexterity plus wisdom modifier. So they get unarmored defense, but it's more geared towards them because you get to do wisdom instead of charisma. You get rhymes of lore, which is kind of neat. It's essentially, think like bardic inspiration. You get a D6 bonus die that you can, anyone within 30 feet of you who's able to hear and understand you. So you can use an action. Oh no, it's a bonus action on one creature, including yourself, within 30 feet of you. And yeah, they get a D6 bonus action, and you can do it a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier per long rest. And so it's got its limits. If you got a 3 or a 4 on intelligence modifier, 3 or 4 times a journey. But hopefully that extra D6 bonus die is worth it. And scholars are as close as you're going to get to a spellcaster in this game. Looking at the table, they have what they call craft slots, and we'll talk about crafts later. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Crafts are what they are, and craft slots recover after a long or short rest. Kicking on down, like you can get some scholarly traditions which can help you do different things, but we're going to talk about the treasure hunter. It's very close to the thief analog. D8, your primary is dexterity, your saves are dex and intelligence. You get proficiency in light armor, simple weapons, short swords, swords. You got a huge list of skills, and you get to pick 4 of them. It's fantastic. Your shadow path is dragon sickness. You want all the goddamn gold. You want every bit of treasure. So, yeah. So you also, the 2 abilities are that you get at first level, expertise and sneak attack. Expertise, you get to pick 2 of your starting skills, and you get to do double the proficiency bonus. So we've seen that in regular 5e, where you get to double up your proficiency bonus on certain skills. And then sneak attack, it's an extra d6 on damage, and you either have to have advantage or you have to have flanking. So yeah, there's got to be an enemy of the enemy within 5 feet of the enemy. Yeah, nice, easy sneak attack. I feel like good planning, you can get that sneak attack off pretty reliably, which will be good. You send out a champion to kind of engage them front on, you sneak around, you do your thing. All right, our last calling is the Warden. Very, not necessarily Paladin, like that's initially what my thought was. It's more Ranger-like. Hit die is a D10. You're going to be looking to do things with dexterity and wisdom. Those are your primary. Your saves are strength and wisdom. You get light armor, medium armor, shield, simple, and martial weapons. So the only thing you don't get is heavy weapons. You get to pick 3 skills out of a decent list. Your shadow path is despair, self-doubt, not being able to help the people you're wanting to. The enemy's too strong. But you do get shadow lore, which works like favored enemy for rangers, right? You pick your favored enemy who's in service: beast, orcs, evil men, giant, monstrosities, undead. When you deal damage to them, you get to add your wisdom modifier to the damage. If they do something to you that requires a save, you get to add your wisdom modifier to the save. You get advantage on finding your favored enemy. You get advantage on knowing information about your favorite enemy. And you get to speak the language of your favorite enemy, presuming they speak a language. Which is very neat. I mean, if you're an orc hunter, you're going to be a pretty good orc hunter. And the other thing that you're going to get is warded lands. You're going to pick your favorite terrain, right? If you're moving in your favorite terrain, you get a lot of stuff. You get to cover more rolls during the journey. You get advantage on fatigue saving throws. You can move stealthily at the normal speed, tracking creatures. I mean, it works a lot like the ranger stuff. It really does. Those are the callings. That's all of them. I like the flavor of them. I really do. I think they're neat. So just putting it all on the table right here, we're about to talk about something I'm not a huge fan of. I can definitely see how they can be fun, but I think it's a translation error, not necessarily as in language, but moving it from 1 ring to 5e, and that is crafts. I'm like, are we making like little hand turkeys, macrame? No, this is as close as you're going to get to spells. There is a small handful of crafts. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Most of the crafts have a passive and an active. The passive is you can always do this. The active is you have to expend your craft slot. Now remember, the scholar starts off at level 1 and 2. You just have 1 craft slot. And it refreshes at a short or long rest. So you're 1 spell a day. Think of it like that. And these are
only 1 turkey a day.
1 turkey a day. So first off is Beastcraft. I think it is, from what I can see, right now I feel like it's the most useful. Because the passive is you can speak with animals. And I think that's very cool. The active, you have to use your slot. You can charm a beast. And if the beast has intelligence 4 or more, you're out of luck. But if you really knock it out of the park, you can permanently charm that beast. And it is with you until you permanently charm another beast. So you can only have 1 permanently charmed beast. I like that. I do. Next up at handcraft. Essentially, the thing you can do special upgrades to armor, weapons, items. Now, you can only use handcraft during the fellowship phase. You can only upgrade one special item at a time. And if you want to handcraft something else, you first have to cancel the special effect that you did on the first item. So if you were going to give a boost to Dan's armor, that armor has that special boost until the next fellowship phase. And then you can say, I'm just going to keep that boost in place. I'm not going to touch that spell slot, because you can't use that slot again until you cancel the special boon on Dan's armor. So it's very limited. Like, I would understand you can only give a boost one fellowship, and then the next fellowship you can boost another item and then another item. But no, you can have one item boosted at a time, and you can
Per
change
slot.
per slot. So sure, once you hit level 3, you got 2 items you could have boosted. But it feels very underpowered, especially because there's no passive. Leechcraft is just pass by it. So you have to spend a slot. And when you do, you get to make a medicine test to heal someone. You roll your medicine check. You have to roll a minimum of 10. You can expend a healing kit to just take a 10. But the healing it does is your spell check minus 10. Minimum of 1. So if you roll a 15 and you expend your craft slot, you did 5 points of healing, which is very low. It's very low.
Especially if you're high level and hopefully have, maybe more than 10 hit points.
If you're high level, your bonuses should be higher. You should be rolling higher, and you'll have more craft slots, so you can expend more craft slots to heal one person more, to heal more people.
But it still seems like
it is very low. I am not a fan of that. Runecraft. The passive I do like. At the end of a short or long rest, you get to identify a magic item. And you have to roll a lore test, and depending on how kind of like rare this item is, that's going to increase how hard it is. But if you pass, you get to know like everything about this item, including, is it cursed? So,
or will it give you magic successes? Because in this game, if you can find someone with magic successes, great.
Yeah. I mean, if you are an elf, and you've got old lore, you can magical success that. And just, everything about it. So, the other thing with runecraft, it is the same problem with handcraft. During an extended... during a fellowship phase, you can expend a slot to give a magical perk to an item. Now, there's a description of those magical perks in the book. I'm not going to get into it. It's the same catch. You can only have one item with a magical rune at a time per slot. So if you got more than one slot, sure, you can have a couple items. But if you want to have another item be magically runed up, you have to scratch out the runes on the previous item. I slapped my mic. I'm sorry, audience.
I don't know, man. You get yourself a rune master, have them putting that on people's weapons. That's pretty good.
One weapon at a time until you're level 3.
Still, just one person in the party, like.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to slap that on...
give it to your sneak attacking person who's stacking up extra dice or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unless you're a party full of like a champion and a whole bunch of treasure hunters, and you've got a lot of people to choose from. But
Yeah.
once you can get that off, then you're going to have yourself a sneak attack stampede.
That's right.
True.
With all of the,
Sneak
you
attack
get there,
stampede.
and then like
There's nothing more terrifying than the sneak attack stampede. That's
Yeah.
true.
Songcraft. Is that on the next page? Let's move along. You can expend a slot. You get a 30-foot diameter performance. Creatures in it need to do your performance, and they have to roll riddle to resist it. You can choose to fail. Everything here works until the next turn. So just until your next turn, this is an effect. The first effect you can choose from is you can suppress magical charm or fear. So if your party gets magically feared for a turn, you can cancel that. Then it kicks back into effect. If it's charm, I mean, yeah, that could be situationally useful once a short rest. You can make a target non-hostile towards certain creatures, so you can, make it indifferent to you. So if you're fighting a warg, all of a sudden for a turn, the warg doesn't care about you. Or you can give a D4, and it's either your choice, is it a boost or a hindrance, to those in range until the next turn. So, you want to help your party out? Everyone who's standing next to me gets a D4 this next round. An extra D4 boost, which isn't terrible.
Yeah, it's like mini bless.
Kinda, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Looking at Speechcraft, this one I find amusing because the first thing you get is just advantage with interacting with elves. You talk real good, and the elves eat that right up. You can expend a slot to try and cause fear in a target, and that lasts for 1 minute. They do get a save at the end of each of their turns. Or you can expend that slot to essentially cast command. It is issuing a 1-word command that the target has to follow on its next turn. And looking at it, it looks like it's got all the regular limitations and rules as the command spell. So once a day, you can command something.
That wouldn't be awful, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they able to resist it, or is it like
it is a intimidate or persuasion check contested by the target's insight. And they are immune if they have advantage if they're immune to being charmed, or if they cannot understand you.
A little less exciting, or a 1-day ability?
Yeah.
It does nothing.
Yeah.
If you know your GM loves elves, take it.
I mean, yeah, if you're going to be messing around with a lot of elves, it is the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be spending a lot of time in Rivendell. That's going to be amazing. I personally, if I picked a craft, it would have been the beast craft, just so I can talk with animals.
Yeah.
That would be worth it. Just, yeah. What was that? Next up is weapon craft. The cool thing is with weapon craft, you can use other stats for some weapons, which that was a 4th edition ability in one of the later player handbooks that I like to abuse. So I could use melee attacks with the charisma modifier. But yeah, it's a weapon you have proficiency with. And you get to use your choice of intelligence, wisdom, or charisma instead of strength or dexterity for attack and damage.
Look how cool I am.
Yeah.
I'm so charismatic in my fighting.
And also, you can expend your spell slot for extra damage dice. And this is really cool. So it's a number of extra damage dice equal to your proficiency bonus. So starting out at level 1, once a day, you get to roll an extra 2 damage die with a weapon using your primary stat.
Kind of nice.
Yeah. So you make a really cool fencer or something like that with this, or, know. Yeah. And then woodcraft. This one is nice. I kind of like woodcraft because you can use nature in place of any explorer hunting skill tests.
Nice.
Get real goddamn good at nature and just use that instead of explorer hunting. And you can also devote an hour in one craft slot, and you can either get a number of creatures +5 to stealth or +5 to wisdom, or you can find a handful of pounds of food or gallons of water equal to your nature check minus the terrain DC difficulty. So it kind of works like that healing thing, but if you're in a party of 4 or 5 and you roll 4 or 5 above the DC difficulty, all of a sudden everyone's got an extra +5 to stealth, which,
That'd be pretty nice.
once a day, that will definitely could be worth it. So, yeah.
Particularly if you've got a stampede.
If you've got
Yeah.
sneak
Mhm.
attack
Got the
stampede, that is where it's at. That's what I wanted to go over. Those are really the new rules. They've got rules for more calling, so you have to have certain minimums on ability scores, and you only get certain proficiencies. They got rules on what you're going to do beyond 10th level. So yeah, you got, what you get once you start moving past level 10. And then finally they got extra stuff, they got their gear, starting equipment. So the important thing to look at is starting gear. If you're frugal, you get to start with a backpack, a bedroll, a mess kit, tinderbox, some rations, water skin. But if you're prosperous, you get all of that stuff plus a hooded lantern, 3 flasks of oil, higher quality rations, silk rope, a tent, a belt pouch, and some money. So,
Wait, you like money? I like money too.
I like money. Who doesn't like
I
money?
mean, always nice.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's talk about some things that we want to talk about. We talked about crafting. I am a little underwhelmed with crafting. So let's start off with our impressions of this, and then we'll kind of dig into some more.
Yeah, let's do
focused
overall
opinions.
before. Yeah.
I really like the theme and the setting. It's really cool. I like it. Is definitely a low powered game. So, and I think that's also the catch that I have with it. If you're walking into this going, I'm going to play 5th edition, you're not.
Nope.
5th edition, you're playing superheroes. This, you are not. You're not as resilient. Things are going to affect you more. They're going to affect you longer. This is like 5th edition on hard mode.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they've stripped it down to basically just what they're actually using from 5th edition as your core stats and skills.
I really, I look at this as a very strong bridge where if you're wanting to move your party, your players into a different game system, throw this at them. Play a little bit like, hey, this is a really fun setting. It's really great. But what would be even better if we played this in its actual game system, One Ring. Why don't we pick that up and go try it out? I think it's a very good bridge for that.
That's pretty much how I felt about this. Like I've got a group that we've played 5e on Sunday nights for nearly a decade.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Every now and then I can get them to step away for like 4 sessions, maybe a month of trying something new.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not going to get them to play One Ring out of the blue. But if I can get them to do this for a bit and they dig it, maybe they will.
Yeah, because you still maintain like the familiarity of how you play 5e. But
and I think this does a very good job of incorporating One Ring into this.
Yeah.
So it won't be a big shock to move from this to One Ring because the groundwork's already there. You were going to say something earlier, Adam.
Yeah, the thing I get from this is you'll definitely want to set your expectations with your players because like what I see from this is they expect you to play it like a lot of the books and movies where fighting was not what happened all the time. Like there was so much that happened in between these fights, and they were like usually a set piece kind of fight. You know, like Moria was a set piece, and sure, it took place in several rooms, but it wasn't a D&D dungeon delve.
No, it was not.
It was
No, and you certainly weren't, bashing goblins your whole way through.
I mean, if I were to translate that, there would be a couple of encounters. There would be an investigative encounter where they're first moving in, they find the room, they're digging up clues. Roll that into the initial combat encounter with the troll and all of the goblins and orcs flooding in. And then once the Balrog showed up, kick that over into a journey. Like, let's do, everyone got their roles. How are you navigating through Moria?
How are you? They do kind of spend actually a fair amount of time running from combat. I think people kind of forget that.
So yeah, you could, like I said, roll that and move into a journey. And then, finally Gandalf, racks up all those XP points for himself. And then the party escapes, ready to start up another leg of the journey to get to safety.
Yeah, I just think it's dependent on the type of table. And, if your table is more of the like typical dungeon delving type, but they also really love the books, eventually they might start to get used to it and go, okay, maybe we shouldn't be going picking a fight with everything. So, you could get used to it. Either that or just know that your characters may be more prone to die. You may not have them for very long.
Definitely lower fantasy. Healing seems like it's going to be a trouble. You're going to have to watch your resources a lot closer.
But I mean, there's different table dynamics. So a couple of tables I play at, this one would be good because we get in combat like 3 to 7 times total in a campaign.
Yeah.
Whereas like, some others, they want it every session. They want, at least a combat every session.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're the type of table that wants to combat every session, then you're going to have to be willing to fast forward time a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to get your rests in between them somewhere to really be effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the fact that short rests take 8 hours, that is a hit die.
Really rough.
Yeah. And I don't know. Looking at it from like a 5th edition, like I said, you're going to go into this dungeon and you are going to spend a while in this dungeon. You're going to take a couple short rests. If you find a safe enough room, you're going to take a long rest. You're not going to be able to do that with this.
No.
So I would say as long as you cater your campaign to be a little bit more like books and movies, where there's big set piece battles.
Yeah.
And that's it for the dungeon. Then I think if you're worried about the way the combat is and the way healing is, that would be a good way to handle this.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Because like if you look at even like the Battle of Helm's Deep, it was a very long fellowship session that immediately kicked over into a very large combat with a couple of different combat encounters that then would have kicked over into another fellowship session. So now I haven't played One Ring, but some very good friends of ours, Adventures in Lollygagging, they have a weekly One Ring game over on their Twitch channel and YouTube. And talking to them about this game and One Ring one thing that they really wanted to emphasize is that, in their opinion, how they play, the fellowship section is where it's at. Like, they are digging into their characters, backstories, lore, interactions. Like, they said, like, that is the part that they really enjoy the most. I mean, like, they enjoy all of it because Jeff runs an amazing game, but they're like, of the different phases, they're like, fellowship is their favorite.
And the role playing and storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else got any overall opinions on the game?
I
I mean,
just hope that your DM's not a jerk because they will kill you with exhaustion.
Yeah. So, journeys, page 100. Let's hop down here in the PDF. So the journey's got some phases. Do I have the journey phases set out? I don't, but that's fine. So you're going to assign some roles. So the roles are guide, hunter, lookout, scout. It kind of gives you what they each do, how you're going to roll it. The journeys break out into, you set a path, you make your pathfinding checks, and then eventually you end the journey. Longer journeys, they recommend breaking up into multiple journeys. Like, as you're going along making these checks, depending on how the Pathfinder does, that kind of dictates how many hexes you move before an event happens. And they've got a table for events. Let me find it. Yeah, journey events tables. If, you roll low on it, terrible misfortune, then up to despair, then to bad choices, mishaps, shore cur, I don't know what that is, fatigue saving throw, chance meeting, you get to meet an NPC or something, and then joyful sight, everyone gets some insight. So yeah, you figure out the events, you figure out how it plays out. It's very much an RP thing. But the thing that is going to catch you is resolution. Oh, it highlighted everything. Oh, well. At the end of the journey, depending on the difficulty of the journey, depending on how the different roles did, that's going to affect the DC at the end of the journey. And at the very end of the journey, you make a fatigue saving throw. If you pass it, you don't take any exhaustion. If you fail it by 5, you're going to take 1. If you fail it by 10, you're going to take 3. Or no, if you fail it, you're going to take 1. 5 or more, 2, 10 or more, it's 3. So exhaustion's tough. You can get rid of 1 level of exhaustion per long rest.
Which is only at a city. Or
Yeah.
a special safe location.
Yeah. So you're going to be potentially racking up exhaustion if you have a DM that's going to stack exhaustion on you for other things. You get to 6 exhaustion and you're dead.
So 1 exhaustion, you get disadvantage on those skill checks that you're trying to use to avoid things that would cause exhaustion. That's okay. 2 exhaustion, now you have disadvantage on all of your attacks. 3 exhaustion, now you have disadvantage on your saves, which includes your save against fatigue.
Exhaustion.
Yeah.
Which is your save against more exhaustion.
Yeah.
And don't forget, wherever you're journeying to, you got to journey back as well.
Yeah. So, like a journey on itself from one safe place to another safe place, you're presumably going to be leaving with no exhaustion. If you show up, you roll bad, you pick up 3 exhaustion, you're going to be going into a fellowship. Fellowship can be a prolonged period of time, so there should be enough long rests to carry you through so you can be cleared out before you head back. But let's just throw a situation. Your goal is to travel to whatever creepy forest and go check out this creepy old keep that supposedly a necromancer's hanging out at. You travel there, you get into some bad events, you don't roll so well. Maybe you've already got a point of exhaustion. Maybe you've got penalties on that fatigue roll.
Yeah, you fail an athletics check to climb. Your DM lets you fail forward with exhaustion.
Yeah. So then your journey ends when you arrive at this creepy tower, this stronghold. Now you're having to make your journey end fatigue roll. You botch it. You got another 2 points of exhaustion. Now you're starting your actual like encounter, your dungeon delve, potential fight with a bunch of exhaustion already tacked on.
And disadvantaged in some situations.
Yeah. So I very much worry about exhaustion.
Seems like that might be a mechanic that just flies off the handle.
I don't know. I would have to really think about it.
Yeah. And I think that's going to come down to how the games run again.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a good faith mechanic there, I think. If you get a DM, different tables play their games differently. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong way, but there are some games where it's more adversarial than others.
Yeah.
And I would argue this is a system if you have an adversarial relationship between the players and the GM is going to hurt you bad.
And if they're throwing a lot of terrible creatures at you, you're going to be dealing with shadow, and you're going to be taking penalties based off that. And then they're throwing exhaustion at you. I mean, it could really snowball and turn into something terrible.
Yeah. Which, I understand. I understand that One Ring, your Tolkien universe is meant to be like the difficulty of, if you're the heroes of good, you're really pushing uphill to fight against evil. I get that. And I think there are some things here that do help reinforce that.
Yeah.
I would really want to play at a table where I have some good faith with my GM.
Yeah.
On this game.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway. Anyone else got anything to throw out there on that?
No, I mean, I'm a little bit used to playing games that kind of implement these sorts of penalties on you.
Yeah.
And sometimes I play with GMs who are one way, and sometimes I play with GMs who are exactly the other. And so, yeah, if you are likely to be, like, if you're really invested in a character and you're likely to be upset by some of these unfortunate things that happen, so then, maybe this wouldn't be something that you wanted to implement, or you just want to make sure that you do know what sort of table dynamic you have.
Yeah.
Because I could see this being really fun in the right circumstances. I could also see it being just something that kind of kills the fun for the entire table and others. So, like other systems like encumbrance, some tables don't want to have that. And that's the beauty of house rules. So
Yeah.
I was going to say house rules. Don't forget you can do them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, another thing unrelated to all of this that I was looking through and I thought was very cool. It's in the lore master section and shadow adversaries. Nameless things. The evil thing that
things.
lives in the water outside of the door entering Moria. And I think it's very cool. They've got base stats. How you can refer to it as like the crawler in the shadows by orcs. How you can describe it when it was first encountered. Rumors about it. Where it's remembered.
I like that
special
content.
characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, special traits. And they've also got rules on the eye and how closely it's paying attention. I haven't read much on that, so I'm not gonna. But yeah, I saw nameless things. I'm like, let's go look at that. This might be something that I definitely implement in other games as well. Just there's a lot of cool stuff there.
From a storyteller perspective, that's great. You basically got one stat block that you can flesh out in a multitude of angles.
Yeah, just kind of churn things out from.
I don't know. This is the thing that the orcs whisper about in the woods, and it has tentacles that will grab you.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. That's what we got. I haven't got anything else. There's definitely, I think there's some really cool stuff here. And I think it's going to be a lot of setting expectations, working together with a good party balance, and not walking into this thing expecting a traditional 5e campaign, because you might have a bad time. Once again, set expectations.
I would use this maybe as a way to try and tempt my 5e table to try something different.
Sure.
My 2 cents, I don't have anything against this one. I think there's stuff in it I like. I would want to use this to try and get my Sunday group to play One Ring.
That's fair. I mean, I do kind of see this as a good stepping stone.
Yeah, kind of like a foot in each pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because this could be an opportunity. It's a setting that a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
And, it could be an opportunity to introduce them into more of a Grim and Perilous style of play in game where, you have like some serious consequences that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But, freely their games can be quite, perilous.
It can be unforgiving. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In some of the games, like you've got like 3 hit points.
Yeah.
And you get hit for 4 damage, and so you have a chance of just getting one shot.
Yeah.
And if not, then you've got an injury you've got to deal with. So and frankly, I find that to be kind of fun. So
yeah. It's just it's an expectations thing. Like some people will sit down expecting a 5e game and not quite be prepared.
Get that.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, Adam. Because I like playing some very low-powered, very dangerous games where things can go very bad very quick. I worry that people who only have experience with 5e aren't used to that. And coming into this expecting 5e. So, but yeah. No, I agree. Like, a lot of the stuff I see, like, kind of the long rest, short rest, how spaced out they are, kind of limitations on your character. Like, I kind of like a lot of that stuff. Like, it's very kind of neat to see that low power kind of take on things. I enjoy that for games. Yeah. But
yeah. And, so if you're watching this and you're kind of on the fence on whether or not your group would be into it, just ask them if they would want to explore that kind of hardship that the Lord of the Rings had, because it had so much hardship in it.
I mean, Frodo got stabbed once and he was
just about done.
About done. And it, essentially gave him penalties for the rest of the journey.
Yeah. And so if you want to play that overcoming these odds, through great adversity, then, if you're like Jeremy and you like playing a multitude of different games, from some that are really high powered, some that are really low powered, and, you want to show a group that's used to the more high powered 5e just a different perspective, then you can take this, and if they can respond well to it after setting expectations, then perhaps they could easily go into the One Ring.
Yeah.
And they could get exposed to the Free League
Mhm.
system.
Absolutely.
And then you've got a whole batch of games to choose from
Yeah.
that they already know the system for.
That's fair. I love me some Forbidden Lands.
Well, it's wonderful.
Are you making noises, Jeremy?
I was just doing char, you know,
Mhm.
the whole ring whisper thing, because Free League. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
5e too. I love you, 5e.
I don't have anything really bad to say about 5e. I don't. I've played
No.
a boatload of 5e for a very long time. It's just my problem with 5e is I played a boatload of 5e for a very long time, and I'm just personally burnt out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, I've had a great time anytime I've played it. So,
yeah. I mean,
You know.
on its own, it's a very solid game. It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to try new things sometimes.
It's very good to try new things sometimes. Like dipping pepperoni pizza in chocolate pudding. It's a very good thing to try. You all
No.
should try.
No.
how many fingers do you use when you do it?
None.
Anyways, so yeah, if after this review you were thinking, yeah, I think it could be good. Depending on when this video is released, we'll have an affiliate link in the description. So if you want to get this game and support the studio, it will help us. It will help us all out.
Yes.
You'd be doing great service to everyone.
Yes.
So if you see a link in the description for the Lord of the Rings 5e and you want it, go ahead
Use
and click
that
on it.
link. Do it. Okay. Well, I think we've talked enough. Let's get out of here. Once again, Grim and Perilous Studios. Check out our Patreon if you want to check out all the cool stuff and the games we're making. Check out our drive-through. Adam will probably have a link for it in the description if you want to buy the games and the adventures and the things we've already got out. I don't know. Good job. You made it to the end. I knew you could do it. Now everyone roll fatigue.
I was really hoping not to, because we all know how that's going to go.
Hang on.
All right. See y'all later.